Luke, I have some groundbreaking news for you. Or should I say wind-breaking news?
What is this news, Michael?
Gone with the Wind hits number 1 on Amazon bestsellers chart after HBO Max drops movie. So basically, HBO thought that it might be a bit insensitive in these times, so they decided to get rid of the movie, and loads of people went out and bought the movie. But this is very interesting to me, Luke, because, as you know, something I like to do is try and broaden my horizons in terms of films. And one of the things I've been trying to do is watch way more classic films. So at the start of each year, I like to kind of have an idea of what films I'm going to watch, especially if they are relevant to what we're going to be reviewing. So if we're going to be watching like a load of zombie films, I might watch a load of zombie films, etc., etc. But sometimes I just have like a spare space where I've got like nothing to put there. So I was like, I'll just look at different films that are considered really famous. And this was like in January, and I was just like, Gone with the Wind, I'll put that there. And I put it in there for this week just gone, which means I watched Gone with the Wind, and then shortly after that, HBO was like, oh yeah, we're getting rid of it. So I just find that really coincidental. But here's my question for you, Luke. Do you think that this proves that the loony SJW left are trying to steal our movies?
Frankly, Michael, I don't give a damn. Was that good or was that good?
That was good, yeah. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out in the near and distant past, we give them a couple of watches and evaluate them beyond first impressions. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week, just for funsies, we are looking at the final installment in the Star Wars saga, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker. So Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker?
Sure thing, Michael, and yes, you're right, we are doing it for funsies. Obviously, we did The Lion King and Cats recently, and we are doing another great 2019 film in The Rise of Skywalker today. So, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker, also known as Star Wars Episode 9 The Rise of Skywalker, is a 2019 American epic space opera film, produced, co-written and directed by J.J. Abrams. It's the third installment of the Star Wars sequel trilogy, following The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi, and is the final episode of the 9-part Skywalker saga. What a great saga it's been, eh?
Yeah.
More bad movies than good. Okay, here's the part where I have to list all the people who starred in this movie.
Hey.
Carrie Fisher, Mark Hamill, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Anthony Daniels, Naomi Aki, Domhnall Gleeson, Richard E. Grant, Lupita Nyong'o, Kerry Russell, Jonas Sumato, Kelly Marie Tran, she's all the way down there, Ian McDermott, and last but not least, Billy D. Williams. The screenplay was by Chris Terrio, as well as J.J. Abrams. The story by Derek Connolly, Colin Trevorrow, J.J. Abrams, and Chris Terrio. Chris Terrio, he was the guy that did Batman v Superman, right?
Yeah, I recognise the name, and I feel like I recognise it from bad films.
Yes. The movie Rise of Skywalker was released on December the 20th, 2019, in the United States. And Michael, can you tell me what the budget was for The Rise of Skywalker?
Well, you know what, actually, Luke? Something I realised we haven't spoken about, which I've been speaking about it on and off for the entire, since The Rise of Skywalker came out, and we haven't actually designated any time to talk about it today, which is the 86% audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, which has remained that way even though it's gone up by 30,000 ratings, the audience score, since I first drew your attention to it, and it's still at 86%, so I don't think there's much you can say apart from just pointing it out. It's very obvious what's going on. Those sneaky sneaks.
And who are these sneaky sneaks, Michael?
Well, I guess it's like, obviously, it's Rotten Tomatoes and Disney, I guess, just kind of in cahoots. Yeah.
Yes.
Just like that story about The Hobbit being in cahoots with New Zealand. Anyway, but more importantly, regardless of these, because, I guess people should know that obviously if they want authentic movie reviews, they shouldn't go to Rotten Tomatoes because they're sneaks. They should go to us. Because it takes a lot of money to buy us off, studios, okay?
Mm-hmm. And it would actually probably take the budget for this movie to do.
Yeah, okay, see, oh goodness me, see, it's got to be loads, and that bothers me, because why would they spend all this money on this? Why couldn't they have just been like, you know what, this is going to be shit, let's just spend £1 million. No, so I don't know, 200 and, I'm going for what feels like a big number, 250 million. That's big.
Very, very good guess. It's actually a bit higher. It's 275 million.
Okay.
Yes. And how much did this movie make at the box office?
Well,
bearing in mind, The Force Awakens made $2 billion and The Last Jedi made 1.3.
Well, I know that this made less. I'm quite sure of that. But I think it still made around $1 billion. Possibly 1.1 billion.
Is that what you're going to go for? 1.1?
Yeah, 1.1 billion.
You are very, very close. That's a good guess. 1.074 billion. So just 26 million off. So yes, the lowest grossing of all the 3 Star Wars movies that were released by Disney, that were part of the, obviously, the Skywalker saga, and not counting... actually, you know what? This movie may have grossed less than Rogue One. I'm not going to check, but it may have.
That's a possibility. I mean, Rogue One definitely had that nostalgia bit going for it.
Yeah, it definitely did. So obviously, Michael, we have to mention this was John Williams' last time scoring a musical for a Star Wars movie, or scoring music in general, sorry. This movie actually did receive 3 nominations for the Academy Awards: Best Original Score, Best Visual Effects, and Best Sound Editing. Didn't win any of them. However, this movie, Michael, even though it was nominated for 3 Oscars, was not praised for a lot else. Did you like Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker?
Well, I was saying how I had a bit of a lead-in to my answer to this question last week. And I want to start by talking about a film I really do like, Luke, and it's a very, very similar film anyways. It's the Takashi Miike film, 13 Assassins. And basically there's this really evil bad guy in it who's like just a complete psychopath, and the 13 Assassins are basically supposed to kill him. And at the end they succeed, but as the evil bad guy kind of gets killed, he starts like just writhing around the floor in agony, begging them to spare his life as he's kind of crying. And the reason it's one of my favorite films is because of the complex emotions you feel in that moment of simultaneously sadness, anger, catharsis, but also disgust at what this person has become, just crawling around on the floor in their own filth, bleeding out, and they only have themselves to blame. And that's basically how I feel about this film. Did you like it?
I mean, yeah, you did a pretty good description there. I'm just going to say I didn't like it. But no matter how much we didn't like a movie, we still have nitpicks. How many do you have, Michael?
I've only got 3, actually.
I've got 9.
Blimey, okay.
Because obviously it's the 9th movie, so I had to have 9.
Wow, okay, yeah. So, and some of these, honestly, a lot of these I originally didn't put under nitpicks, and I was like, oh, I'll put them under nitpicks. So I got, people randomly start caring about family names in this film. So obviously, at first I was like putting that under like the section for Rey, because obviously it's setting up the fact that Rey, setting up a classic moment of this film. But, obviously now I was thinking, well, to be fair, it's just the kind of thing you do. If you want to set up a theme, you're going to have people kind of say things that work up for that theme. So it's just a nitpick. People randomly start saying like, Rey who? When nobody has ever done that in the history of Star Wars, even though lots of people have had kind of unclear, ambiguous names. So there we go. Number 2, the whole coincidence with Lando just being on the planet. I thought you might go for that one because you like your coincidences. Surprised they just ran into him randomly. And see, this one's a weird for a nitpick, but I guess I'm going to say that it counts as a nitpick. The bit where General Hux says, "I'm the spy," is like the worst delivered line ever. And I don't know if I should put it as a nitpick, because maybe you could say it's like a genuine problem with the film, but to be honest, I guess because I didn't really care about things like line delivery, because there were so many other issues, for me it was more of a nitpick. Genuinely, when I first watched this film, I burst out laughing when he says it, because just the way he says it is just so weird. Just like, "I'm the spy," and he just like, says it just into the ether, just like as if just to let the audience know. And it's just so weird how he says it. I love it. So I guess maybe it's more of a nitpick. But what are your 9 nitpicks, Luke?
Well, you know what? I did actually have one to do with General Hux. Not the line delivery though, something else. But anyway, so the Aggie Festival, as it's called, the one where they all go to and find Lando. That was one of your nitpicks. They find Lando. Mine was that this happens once every 42 years, and they just so happen to be there on that day.
Yeah, well, they kind of lampshade that by being like, "Oh, that's lucky," but whatever. It's still not an excuse.
You can't get out of it that way. I'm sorry. Why not just have it like every year? Why every 42? It's just fucking ridiculous. Anyway, this is a massive nitpick, Michael. The fact that you haven't put this in really makes me question your nitpicking abilities. They all sink into this sinking sand thing, and that sinking sand pit delivers them right to the sword that they need to use to find the Wayfinder. Just insane look all round. This guy, he could have been anyone on this planet, and he happened to be right at the bottom of that sandpit. Just absolutely insane odds. What do you think about that? Do you think
No, yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah, basically, yeah. I think the funny thing is actually that I've heard loads of other people complain about like, how can it be quicksand above a cave? And people say, because wouldn't the quicksand, and because of that, like, and I don't really think that's I kind of think like, whatever, things things are just weird. It's an alien planet. Different material can behave in different ways. But I think because I already had that nitpick in the back of my head and was in the middle of dismissing that nitpick, I didn't really have room to introduce another nitpick.
I see. Okay. Next nitpick. The Force can heal people now. Are you fucking kidding me, man? What the fuck?
Have you ever played the Star Wars games where you press down on R3 and L3 and it heals you?
No, I have not done that. I can't say I have. I mean, Qui-Gon right now is really pissed, isn't he?
Oh, dear.
Yeah, the Knights of Ren, Michael. What a load of BS. More like the Shites of Ren. Right? Because they're not good. Because they don't do anything.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, good. That was
in a way they're kind of like modern knights. Modern knights don't fight. Modern knights don't ride horses or joust people or anything. So they're bad. Yeah,
fair enough. Good point. My next nitpick is Hux being a spy. So obviously, General Hux, worthless character anyway, but surely he knows that there are cameras that would capture what he did on film.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
So he would be found out as the spy immediately and helping, the rebellion escape. So here's the thing. He says he's not doing what he's doing to help the resistance. He's doing it to help himself. So Kylo Ren fails and he can resume, being champion of the First Order,
lovely.
Like he was previously. But if that's his motivation, then he's just royally fucked himself, hasn't he? If he's been caught on camera helping, because he dies and then that's it. Like you've got to be smarter than that, surely. But anyway, that's him. A shitty death for an incredibly shitty character. And to be fair, that's not this movie's fault. It was the previous movies. The Sith Wayfinder. Okay, so Rey manages to find it by looking, so they get to the moon on Endor or something, and she manages to find it because the Sith Wayfinder is located by looking at the Sith sword and placing it over a piece of the destroyed Death Star.
Yeah.
Even though that's completely random and they're standing in a completely random spot, they would not have any idea that this is the spot. And even though it's just been there for 30 years, because, that's when the Death Star fell into Endor. I mean, aren't these Wayfinders meant to be around for ages? Why would this sword specifically tell them to stand on this spot? When, the Death Star, I assume when these Wayfinders were created, there was no such thing as a Death Star. It doesn't make any sense at all. And is quite shocking how little that these guys who made this movie thought about that. It really is. But anyway.
Yeah.
Next nitpick. Kylo Ren, how does he get to that destroyed Death Star bit on Endor without anybody knowing? So Rey's trying to get that Wayfinder. She loses control of it, and then it comes to Kylo Ren, who picks it up because he's in the building now, or he's in the the Death Star, the ruins. And how did he get there? No indication of him knowing where to go at all. But he's there. So that's great. Merchandising now, my next nitpick, Michael. So this is not new for a Star Wars movie, but I think it was quite egregious in this particular episode. They had that stupid droid who...
Oh, the hairdryer.
The hairdryer. I can't even remember what he's called. But yeah, I mean, so obvious that he's there to sell toys. So fucking obvious.
Yeah, what was his catchphrase? It was like, no thank you,
I don't know,
don't touch. Something like that.
Yeah, oh god. Nowhere near BB-8 levels, unfortunately. You had those Sith Troopers. Remember the Sith Troopers? They appeared right at the end, dressed in red. Those were great. Another wonderful toy to sell. And then the end line between Lando and his daughter, who you don't know is his daughter, obviously, in the movie. That is meant to set up a spin-off, which I don't think is actually being spin-off. So that line in the movie that will remain there as a monument to the embarrassment that Disney had to suffer. By cancelling things, a lot of projects after this movie. And my last nitpick, the lesbians kissing, Michael.
Oh yeah, I was thinking about that actually.
Went on for a whole 2 seconds, and I do not like to see it, and I do not expect that in my family-friendly PG Disney movies.
Yeah, I wanted to see Poe and Finn fuck instead.
We'll get onto that later, but no. Obviously, the last nitpick the nitpick is that that's Disney's LGBT representation, isn't it? Yeah, which is great. Which can easily be cut out on certain cuts, like it was in Singapore, I believe, from memory. Because it's not that relevant to the film. So there we go then. Those
like Singapore representation of LGBT characters.
Very good, very good. So those are the nitpicks. And I guess, we have to talk about the fact that... we'll talk about the build-up to this movie. So originally, Colin Trevorrow was hired to direct and write scripts.
Famous sexist Colin Trevorrow.
Yes, but okay. So we're doing an episode. Well, it's not an episode. A review next week of the whole Disney Star Wars,
the whole fiasco.
Movies. Yeah, the whole shebang. And so we'll talk about more about Colin Trevorrow, I suspect, there, and Kathleen Kennedy. But he left because of creative differences with Kathleen Kennedy, and so Abrams returned
because she was a woman.
Abrams returned as a director, and we have to talk about, I guess, now how this Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, was set up, because we talked about it when we reviewed Star Wars Episode 8, The Last Jedi. This movie, I think, look, it's a bad movie, okay, but there was really nowhere to go from the end of Episode 8. I think we need to talk about this, because obviously in this movie there were just some awful ideas, and it was really bad, but part of why this movie is bad is because of Episode 8. And part of why Episode 8 is bad is because it led to Episode 9. I think of that line from Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace. What happens to one of you affects the other. You must understand this. Sadly, Disney didn't understand it, and therefore you had these two competing directors. I guess they kind of were competing, but two directors who had competing visions, shall we say, who wanted to go in different directions. And therefore, the setup to this last movie, that Episode 8, did was really bad. And I have to have a bit of sympathy. Where was there to go? Where was there to go is, Michael, what ideas, we talked about it in The Last Jedi, what ideas could you come up with to make this movie entertaining? I think they were hamstrung right from the get-go. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of agree. I will say that something I appreciate about this film is that I think that I'm really happy it was as bad as it was, because I was kind of worried that what might happen is there would be a great tragedy where they start to get their shit together, like, too late. Where they're like, okay, let's try and make a really good Star Wars film. But they only decide to try and make a really good Star Wars film now, when it's basically too late and there's nothing they can really do to fix all of the weird, convoluted mess that's been set up. So I'm glad that instead they were like, you know what, let's continue to be really bad at making Star Wars films. And that way we do get a nice diminishing returns effect going on. So I am very thankful for that. But yeah, in terms, and I will say then that they could have made it better. But I think the in some ways, I don't want them to have made it better, because the best they could have done would have just been like a 4 out of 10. Like maybe if they really pushed for it, they could have got that 5 out of 10. But ultimately, what are they going to do? They could have stuck with a few things. They could have had a bit more integrity, and I would have respected that a lot more if they would have not just kind of backed out of so much shit like they ended up doing. But yeah, they really couldn't have done much at all. And I agree with you that really there was no way. This film was never going to be great. This film at best would have been average, and I'm kind of glad it ended up being a complete unmitigated disaster.
I guess so, but yeah, you're right. This film could never have been great, but it didn't have to be terrible. That is the situation that this film found itself in, but it was terrible, as we'll get into now, I guess, with the plot. So, I mean, we really kick off with just an absolutely incredible first 7 minutes, because in this first 7 minutes, obviously, we get the opening title crawl that explains everything, and it's like the two previous movies never happened. The first 7 minutes, we find out that the Sith is back, that Snoke was just a clone, and the Emperor had been, well, I say the Sith, Emperor Palpatine, obviously, he had been building up battleships on this planet. There are about 10,000 of them.
Yeah.
Ready to go. He had been controlling things all along, pulling the strings, even though he hasn't been, I think, even mentioned in the previous two movies, let alone been in them. So yeah, it's quite wild. Just none of it is explained. How is he alive? Well, the dark side is a path to many abilities that some consider unnatural. Right, there we go. That explains it. We can dust our hands off. Yeah, all done. We move on to the next thing. It's just crazy. All of this is announced right at the start as well. None of this is explained in a clever way. It's all just dumped on the audience right away. And also Palpatine, he doesn't appear until the end as well. He's in the movie for the first 7 minutes, and then right at the end as well. So yeah, I think it's not a great idea to bring Palpatine back in the first place, but the way it was executed as well was extremely, extremely poor. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is so just awful. And I think the funny thing is, it's the kind of thing where I feel like Poe has this great line, somehow Palpatine returned. which I really liked. But the opening crawl is almost the kind of thing, weirdly, you could have had it at like the start of the first episode, like as in, episode 7, where it would be like, which is kind of weird, but you could be like, oh yeah, Palpatine's kind of re-emerging. He's reconfiguring himself together. What you said about how it's as if the last 2 films didn't happen is completely true. Like basically, this is, you're getting your main villain for the trilogy introduced in the last episode. And obviously they, in the original trilogy, Ian McDiarmid didn't come along to do the Emperor until episode 6, but he'd always been like a very real presence. It was because he was the one in charge because it was the Empire who was doing the thing. The other thing I don't like is that this has the bigger and bigger and more thing, which J.J. Abrams always does, and he needs to be taken out and shot for it. You got in The Force Awakens. Have you ever heard of this Death Star? Well, how about Star Killer Base, which can fire multiple lasers at once and destroy entire star systems? Oh, it's good because it's more and it's bigger. And this time, you ever heard of Star Destroyers? Well, how about 10,000 Star Destroyers from nowhere? Where did they come from? Who cares? There's no consequences. Nothing matters. Heck, why even get invested in a war? Like, okay, you can literally, this is such a broken universe where you can have a character suffer just horrendous defeats, or a side suffer horrendous defeats, lose loads of numbers, and it means nothing. Because you're like, well, for all we know, someone's going to magic a bunch of Star Destroyers out of anywhere. Like, it doesn't, so there's loads of them. And also, every single one now has the ability to destroy a planet. So, don't worry, Luke. Okay, you're worried it's going to be exciting? Well, you know how episode 4 just had that lame single Death Star? Now, we've got multiple Star Destroyers, thousands of Star Destroyers.
Episode 5 didn't even have it. All 6. They were building it. But,
I know, yeah, and it's like, why can you not? And it's the short-sightedness of it all. The hubris of it. That they're not
he does wear glasses, doesn't he?
That they're not like, if our entire gimmick is just more and more and more, and there we go. I mean, that's a positive for Rian Johnson. He didn't do this. J.J. Abrams is obsessed with doing this. And thank God J.J. Abrams didn't write episode 5, I guess, or else we probably would have had the, Star Destroyers with, the ability to destroy planets on, in episode 5. And then what would he have done for this episode? Sorry, not episode 5, episode 8. What would he have done for this? Who knows? Yeah. We would have had like a fucking, this is the Galaxy Destroyer. Oh, look, it's bigger.
Literally, yeah. I mean, look, like I said, I have some sympathy as they had to create a plot in one movie because of how episode 8 ended. That is a knock that no matter how many people think that, because of how shit The Rise of Skywalker was, that validates them liking The Last Jedi. That is something that you can never get off because this movie did not set up, because The Last Jedi did not set up Rise of Skywalker in a good way at all. But these ideas were just awful. Like you said, the gimmick of making everything bigger and better is I mean, I'll get onto it later when we talk about the actual ending of this movie. But yeah, I mean, I just sit back and think this is the best that they could come up with. I mean, they could do such a lot of stuff in a clever way, like Kylo Ren maybe getting turned on by the stormtroopers who are now
turned on. That guy though, that's the ship nobody saw coming.
Oh yeah, great. And who are now loyal to the Emperor, and having to find the planet that he lives on to get the First Order back. That was something that I thought of that would make things interesting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've always been a fan of that.
Yeah.
The idea that, like, kind of the First Order are, like, the lesser of two evils, and that's, like, the twist.
Yeah, I guess so. And, we don't even see the moment that Kylo Ren realizes that Palpatine is back. I think that would be a huge moment in the saga. It's just brushed over, the dead speak.
It's so funny.
Yeah,
I mean, brilliant.
Like the main villain from the first 6 episodes, he's back, and one of the main characters has found out, and he's just we don't even see that moment. I think they could have used the time to do this in a better way. And what did they do instead of having Palpatine's return being drawn out and giving it the significance it deserved? They used this time to have a plot concerning wayfinders and swords and all these MacGuffin devices.
Yeah, that's
so
the thing.
it's not like they had to include something that was pivotal to the story that made it better. No, they could have done this a lot slower. We're not missing out on anything if we got rid of the whole MacGuffin plot.
I mean, basically, do you want to talk about that, the whole MacGuffin thing?
Yeah, let's get on to it.
So it's been said this is like a video game, and that's definitely true. And it's kind of weird because it is literally
like video games though.
It's filler. And that is so strange in a film like this, but it's kind of, I guess it's because they really, I think they just knew, well, there's no point trying to tell a story at this point. We'll just have some things happen and then we'll just fill up loads of other stuff. We'll have like some big things happen and then we'll have some filler. And the filler is, I mean, what is it? It's what's the first thing they got to find? I just want to say one thing. I just want to say one thing about Kylo, actually. So you have Kylo Ren go to this planet, kill loads of people, and then he gets the Sith Wayfinder. Like, you basically got one scene of him killing loads of people, one scene of him getting the Sith Wayfinder, and then he goes to see Chancellor Palpatine. And I'm kind of left thinking, apart from anything else, why even bother with that, like... And it kind of sets up this weird thing of, we have to see the character find the thing to find the thing. Like, immediately. In just, like, the space of, like, 3 scenes. You got Kylo Ren kills all the thingies, he finds the Sith Wayfinder, kills all the aliens, finds the Sith Wayfinder, and then goes to find Palpatine. It's like, you didn't have to have those first 2 scenes. You could just have Kylo Ren knows where Chancellor Palpatine is, goes to find it. And then we get the actual plot on the hero side, which is just that for an hour. So
yeah, it's actually that for about 100 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because I looked at the time when Rey actually gets to Exegol. We're 100 minutes into the movie. But yeah, I guess, I called it the MacGuffin Express. You said you liked that. And I think it's quite accurate because, you have 20 minutes in, and you have all this exposition that has been dumped by Poe in... This is an awful scene. It's like a discount version of a Star Wars scene before a battle. I mean, I think you can tell by looking at Oscar Isaac's acting, his heart isn't in it. Like, he gives like a sigh before he starts, and I'm just thinking that's a sigh of him saying this dialogue because he knows how bad it is. He's like, so Palpatine's back.
Yeah, I was really struggling. Like, as I was watching this film, I was thinking, imagine, because I mean, it goes back to the money and everything, but like the fact they spent all this money on this and stuff. But you think, like, imagine how horrible it must have been to just like, because sometimes, like, I do things, and I think, like, halfway through I have a moment, like, what's the point in this? Like, I'll be writing an essay, I'll think, it really doesn't matter, because, it's just, like, a tiny part, or I'll be, like, I don't know, working on something, a little review, and I think that, is how many people are going to see it, does it really matter? But that takes, like, those things take, like, 2.5 hours of my life, or whatever. This took, presumably, months going on, a whole year, of just people, doing all of this stuff. The actors had to be there. Every single morning, those actors had to get up and think, yeah, we're doing this film. And there's no chance any of them were enthusiastic about it. No chance any of them were like, oh yeah, this is really great. I'm happy about being in this.
That's the thing, you can tell with his Oscar Isaac's acting in this. I genuinely think he can. He just like, Palpatine's back. He's going to kill us all unless we stop him. Like, you get the idea. We've been through this before. Rey obviously then goes to find the Wayfinder with, Poe and Finn and all of them. And as you mentioned, there is no plot in this movie, as it's all MacGuffins, as J.J. Abrams can't write compelling movies. They don't even find the Wayfinder on the planet that Lando's on. They find a sword, a Sith sword, that they need then to go and translate, that they then can use to find the Wayfinder, that then leads them to the Sith planet. So we have about 3 stops on this journey, to go to whatever the planet Lando was on, then to Babu Frick to get it translated, and then they finally get to the Sith planet. And like I said, it takes them 100 minutes until they finally get there. Something which could have just taken like 20 minutes if you want to, have some fun scenes with all the characters bonding and getting along. But yeah, literally, it takes up double, well, maybe even triple the amount of time it should, because again, J.J. Abrams can't write compelling plots. Shall we say plots? That's probably better, because maybe some people enjoy his style. I'll just say plots. Like, it's not interesting at all, because there isn't a plot. We're just going to get to the thing, very, like, that's what a MacGuffin is. There is no plot. It's very disappointing to see that this is the path that was taken, in the final Star Wars saga, the most famous film franchise of all time, and this is how the final movie ends, without a plot, really, with just, like you said, it's as if these characters are in a video game and have to complete one level after another. Yes, very, very disappointing.
I guess the good news is, since there's not much of a plot, we don't have to talk about it too much. Just like, that's the great thing about these films, that just hardly even try to have a plot. It means we can talk about loads of other stuff.
I mean, that's the thing. We can't really dive into it, because the only thing that really happens of consequence is the ending, which we'll talk about later.
But along the way, you'll be pleased to know they don't achieve nothing. Loads of people manage to die, almost, kind of, sort of, partially, including our hero Chewie. I mean, to tell you what, Chewie, he's been around for ages, ever since he was fighting with Yoda on Kashyyyk in episode 3. Remember that, Luke? Kashyyyk. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm not a Star Wars nerd. Sorry, I didn't look up on Chewiepedia. That's not what it's called.
It's called Wikipedia, right?
Yes, Chewie's dead. He died. Rey shot lightning at him, and he died. How did that make you feel?
Well, I was incredibly depressed, Michael.
Did you do a John Boyega and go, no?
Well, I was incredibly depressed because I knew he wasn't dead, watching it for the first time. And I'll tell you why I knew he wasn't dead. It's because there is no way they'd kill off Chewbacca like that with him just randomly in a ship. There would be shots of him trying to get out of that ship, or shots of him within that ship. They wouldn't just have, oh, he's dead. I mean, that's the thing. People talk about how awful it is that you couldn't have let us have this moment of, grieving Chewbacca because he's immediately, in the next scene. But I never bought it.
Yeah, and also to be honest, even if you did buy it, how would you even grieve? Because you'd be like, well, that was weird. They just killed off such an iconic character, kind of impersonally. Just like, oh, it's a lightning thing hitting a ship and he's dead.
Yeah.
So even if he was actually dead, you wouldn't be like upset. You'd just be like, well, that was weird.
Yeah, I think a much better way to do it was have Rey, you wanted Rey to discover that she's a lightning user thingy, something like that. And I think that's fine, but do it with Chewbacca, being in the ship and maybe he jumps out. He's wrestling with the guards, for instance, because, Rey and Kylo Ren, they're moving the ship about. That allows Chewbacca to knock one of the guards over. And so as the ship is tumbling to the ground, like he jumps out onto the sand and survives, and then Rey can still be like... Or
Chewie does get electrocuted, but just because he's a beast, he's able to handle it. Like, he gets electrocuted, falls out of the ship blows up, and then Chewie just gets up and just goes...
Oh, he's not a god. He is like 7 foot and a Wookiee, but I think that'd be a bit too far. But yeah, here's the thing. Obviously, you want Rey to almost kill Chewie because she thinks, oh, maybe it's inevitable that I'm going to join the dark side or some dumb stuff like that, as it doesn't make sense if your intentions were to save him or not killing... which we'll get into later discussing Rey, but yeah, all around just very dumb on the Chewbacca thing.
Yeah, I agree.
What else?
C-3PO. He dies.
What about him?
How did it make you feel when C-3PO died? Because he got his memory erased, and he said, taking one last look at my friends.
Yes, Anthony Daniels apparently begged George Lucas for a moment for C-3PO in the original trilogy or the prequels, and George Lucas, I can't remember which video I watched that told me this, but George Lucas was always just like, no, he's a coward, he's dumb, or something like that, and just laughed him off.
So you're saying that J.J. Abrams is actually a hero?
No, I'm saying J.J. Abrams...
Anthony Daniels' dreams come true.
J.J. Abrams is a bitch for giving in to Anthony Daniels and letting C-3PO have that moment.
To be honest, seeing as it was going to be shit anyway, they might as well just made a whole C-3PO, C-3PO's big adventure.
No, to be fair, like it's fine. Like I just don't like Anthony Daniels at all.
I've heard he's a dickhead, but I can't really remember why. What's he done? Why do we hate him?
Because he just thinks he's the most gifted person ever.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. I don't know, I knew that he kind of had this whole thing where he was a bit up himself. I didn't really know exactly what it was he'd done,
incredibly. I mean, look, I don't really hate him because, I don't never met him. I don't lay asleep at night thinking of Anthony Daniels, but yeah, basically, I mean, it's hard to separate because Anthony Daniels was pushing for that. He was like, "Come on, JJ, give C-3PO his shining moment."
Yeah. But weren't you cheering when in the end R2-D2 gives him his memory back anyway? So it's like he wasn't even dead.
Yeah, it's like, so his sacrifice meant nothing. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh
yeah.
wow.
That's why when I realised that it didn't matter that Carrie Fisher was dead because they could just bring her back to life with CGI, and I was like, oh, who even cares?
His sacrifice meant nothing.
Yeah, she did the sacrifice because she didn't want them to make any more Star Wars films, but they just reanimated her corpse.
Yeah, her agent, Carrie, I've got another one of these to go. So, well, you know what?
Yeah, it's like Weekend at Bernie's. Basically, So I think they did it with like body doubles, some CGI, and then like just random scenes they had of her just standing around. And then she dies. Well, she dies too, which is fine. I guess they might as well have. I don't really know why they didn't just kill her in episode 8. Like, I've always thought I guess it would be difficult because they kind of have to reshoot it, but I always just thought, like, she gets blasted out of that ship. Why not, instead of having her do the thing where she randomly floats back, just have her be dead? I guess that would probably upset people.
Because Rian Johnson is a massive Mary Poppins fan, as we spoke about.
I know,
so that was a tribute. I think, look, she has to die, I guess, to save Kylo Ren. The thing is, you're in a really tough position with this movie because, as Rich Evans said in the Red Letter Media review, they really backed the wrong horse, didn't they?
Yes.
They really did. They really did. Very unfortunate that she died, obviously, and very sad. But yeah, I mean, oh god, in this movie, it's just so awkward. And I forgot about
this. Yeah, you know what they should have done? They should have just had Mark Hamill dress up in drag and just hope no one noticed. Just like have everyone like be like, oh, it's Princess Leia.
Yeah, I mean,
you could just do his, Joker voice. It's fine. Yeah. That's pretty feminine.
it is so awkward knowing that she's dead, and nothing that she says in the movie is natural, and everything about the dialogue is forced. I remember when she says, like, never underestimate a droid.
I remember that. That was so good.
There's just nothing about droids, and she has to say it because that's a line of dialogue that she said, so we have to use it.
That's so good. I love it.
I don't have to add it in because it has to be. I'm sure there's there's like a Simpsons episode that sums it up. I can't remember.
Yeah, no. I know which one you're thinking of. It's the one where it's the one with Radioactive Man. Where like, thanks to modern editing, we can complete the movie without Milhouse. And it's like, looks like we're done with it, done for this time, Fallout Boy. Jiminy Jilliker's Radioactive Man. It's just a completely different shot. That's great.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah. Oh god, it's so bad. I mean, maybe they couldn't have done anything, but yeah, that just makes this movie that bit worse than it already would have been. But yeah, again, like they were kind of trapped with the fact that, well, we have to include Princess Leia in
well,
this.
Well, honestly, I felt like they could have had her be like kind of a I was going to say like a Yoda figure, which I don't really mean because obviously Yoda is around, but kind of like the idea of somebody who you don't really see, but you just like hear about. They're like, oh yeah, Princess Leia, she's giving us these commands from the Killer Base or whatever. No, not Killer Base. I don't know whatever the Jedi things call that.
They probably wouldn't name it that.
Yeah, Liver Base.
The Liver Base. Yeah. So yeah, that's the deaths. And think I mean the Leia one was okay, but obviously her being in the movie didn't work. Chewbacca, just a really dumb fake death, and C-3PO, like you say, he gets his memory back, so nothing mattered in the end. Like a lot of things in this movie. So let's talk about the ending actually now.
Yes, the end.
The actual... Obviously, this has been building up for 1 hour and 40 minutes of the movie, so we finally get there, and we, as you said before, there's all these ships that Emperor Palpatine has created that all have the power of the Death Star too. All of them have crews as well. Somehow, who knows what they've been doing for the last
crazy.
30 years.
It must have been pretty boring being on this. I'll tell you what, maybe, Red Dwarf? That's probably what they just had, like, loads of Red Dwarf situations, just like people hanging around on a spaceship. 10,000 Red Dwarfs, all happening at once. I actually wanted to talk about the number of, because obviously we're mostly going to talk about the whole Palpatine stuff, because that's just the funniest thing. But I also want to talk a tiny bit about the final space battle. And yeah, I'm sure you want to riff on those horses, but hold your horses, Luke. Literally. I was thinking, because as you know, I'm a big fan of retrospective rewrites, and I was thinking, like, what would be a good thing to do with episode 9? And this wasn't really with regards to following on from episode 8, although I think this would be a valid thing to do. And I always think about Lord of the Rings with these things, and obviously the big thing with Return of the King is, what was it? It was just loads of the films, just this massive, great big battle. And the logic was, well, it's the end of this huge saga, this huge fantasy adventure. How are we going to end it with a massive battle of like good versus evil? And I was kind of thinking to myself, they could have done that with this. Like, what they could have done is they could have done completely like Lord of the Rings style or Return of the King style, have just like the battle begin like halfway through. And obviously, again, it would be difficult because in the Lord of the Rings, you care about the characters, which is, and that makes it interesting. And obviously, in this case, it would be mindless action. Yeah. But I was thinking, like, if they don't have any idea of what to do, at least they could just be like, and yeah, obviously, I would personally be bored out of my mind with these characters because I don't care about them. But I was thinking, like, that would make sense to me to be like, well, we're going to have it, it's a big end of this 9-part saga. We're going to have end of this massive battle between good and evil. But to be honest, it's kind of weird because the battle is almost just like, it's no more impressive than like the battle at the beginning of Revenge of the Sith. No, like it's no more impressive than any other space battle when you really break it down. Yeah,
you're right. And obviously what it's not impressive, but obviously J.J. Abrams tries to make it impressive because it's going to be epic with these 10,000 ships and 10,000 resistant fighters going at it, just like War and Peace, Yeah. And the thing is, Michael, it's all CGI.
Yeah.
And you could, well, the Lord of the Rings is, but the difference, I think, is, well, we only know the characters in 2 of the ships.
Yes.
And does that just mean that the size of the battle actually has no bearing on how emotionally invested we are? And in fact, that the sheer stupid size, and the size is stupid because it just come out of nowhere, all these ships, the sheer stupid size of this battle makes it seem unrealistic and therefore makes me less likely to be invested in this battle. Maybe that's the case as well.
Well, and also I think the other thing is, I kind of already hinted this when I was talking about the fact these ships come out of nowhere, but I mentioned a while ago, years ago, numbers. I think that Star Wars has a terrible numbers problem, which is not the case in Lord of the Rings. In Lord of the Rings, when you watch that trilogy, and if you're like me, you watch it every single day, the one thing that you're very much aware of is how many soldiers there are on each side. you're very much aware that like the forces of Mordor have around like 200,000ish. Like there's some clear indication of that, and you're also very aware of like the Gondor. You can see how many they have. You can kind of tell they'll often be referring to like, oh, there's 10,000 people have just arrived. We've only got 300. Blah blah blah. They're like constantly making it clear how many, which means when you see people die, you're like, oh wow, that was a lot of people who just died. That must have had a serious impact. Whereas in this, when you see like a lot of people die, it's like, oh, that's a number. That's a thing just happened. It doesn't mean anything to you because you don't really have any idea like what the grander scale is.
Yeah, you don't have any context of who's winning the battle. Was that a big thing? I think to that Lord of the Rings fight scene, and I'm thinking about how the orcs are marching forward and they're throwing like massive boulders into the orcs.
Oh yeah,
and the orcs can't move. They have to stand still for some reason. I can't remember why. But yeah, just like it's like you're watching a game of sport. Like you're constantly saying, oh, this is how well this side's doing compared to this side. Yeah, and in this, it's just a fucking mess. Like, everyone's shooting bullets everywhere. Obviously, the Resistance are losing until the 10,000 Resistant fighters show up. But then they're just firing at each other, bam, bam, bam. I mean, they're trying to take out a navigation tower.
Because the comms can't tell which way is up.
Yeah, obviously.
Love it.
But yeah, it's just so much worse. And maybe if they stretched it out and actually, talked about numbers, talked more about strategy and, actually had some context for this battle, it would have been better. But yeah, it's just adding more ships and more resistance fighters and mashing them all together does not make me invested in this, sadly.
I think that the best thing they could have done would be like have different stages of it. So kind of like, it's like, oh, we've got to push them back from this asteroid belt. They're using this asteroid belt as a defensive base. And then you have like this big fight in the asteroid belt, and then I don't know, maybe somebody important dies there. And then you'd be like, okay, now we've got to do the final assault. Like, at least have it in like 2 different stages, and then that way, and cut out one of the trying to find a thing, and then at least you're kind of making the battle seem a bit more grand without having it just be like one massive hodgepodge. And it's like it's kind of claustrophobic in a way because they're just like within this. They have to do it within the atmosphere of this planet. And it's like, ugh. It just feels like there's nothing expansive about it, nothing grand about it. Anyway, I think we said enough about that. Let's talk about Palpatine's plan.
Well, yes.
Palpatine's a great plan. He always has the best plans, does old Palpatine.
Alongside this massive battle that's going on, which really isn't that relevant, I guess, because Palpatine can just electrocute everyone out of the sky just with a click of his fingers. Well, anyway, while that's going on, Rey is talking to Palpatine, like usually happens in these scenarios. Palpatine needs to kill Rey. Sorry, Palpatine needs Rey to kill him so he can get into her body and become the Sith once more or something. But then Kylo comes along and he just Palpatine just takes both of Rey and Kylo's life forces because apparently Rey and Kylo are joined together, connected by the Force somehow. They're a dyad. They use that word. That's new. That's just brought up right at the end of this trilogy.
I like that bit. That was my favourite bit.
Okay, right, fine. It's like he's a Dementor. I mean, yes. I don't really want to reference Harry Potter stuff, but, that's what it's like. And I don't know. I mean, I thought Rey had to kill you, Palpatine, but apparently that doesn't need to happen anymore. You can just suck the life out of these guys.
It was so weird. Like, first of all, okay, number one, he explicitly sent Kylo to kill Rey. And then he was like, I didn't want you dead. I wanted you brought here before me. Which is very weird.
What does he actually want?
Two, he's like, strike me down and you will... and I will enter into you, and you will be the Empress of the Sith. And I was thinking to myself, there's no morality to it. In that, like with Return of the Jedi, Luke, the reason, like, the Sith is the Darth Sidious, Emperor Palpatine, is trying to tempt Luke into killing him. Because he wants Luke to turn to the dark side so that Luke can become his new apprentice. Like, that's basically how it's set up. And he's like, you've failed. Now all you need to do is strike me down and you will prove that you are evil and that you know that violence and hate can save the day. And obviously Luke's like, no, I'm not going to do that. In this one, it's not about morality. It's not about Palpatine trying to change Rey's morality or convince her to turn to the dark side. So he's just saying, strike me, and then I will enter into you, and you will become evil like me. Like, basically, which one is like, how's that supposed to work? He's just like, basically giving her a reason not to strike him down. It would make more sense if instead of Palpatine just like expositioning the whole plot to everyone, he would have been like, kill me because you want to kill me. And then it turns out that actually maybe earlier on he's like, once she kills me, then I'll enter into her. Which would make more sense than him literally saying to her, if you kill me, it won't do anything because I'll just enter into you.
Well, he says that he tried to convince her. He tried to convince her by saying, well, all your friends are dying.
Yeah, that's so stupid.
But it's like, okay, what do you think, if Rey, if you kill Palpatine, and he goes into your body somehow, what do you think he's going to do to all your friends? Do you think he's going to let them live?
Yeah.
Or is he going to kill them? He's probably going to kill them. I'm going to guess he's going to do that.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, he just stupid all round. And then after that, Rey gets up. After obviously Palpatine's demented on them, Rey gets up and starts fighting Palpatine, and she is now all the Jedi. Even though I don't think that's the case. I mean, where is the evidence, Rey? I think you just made that up. I'm going to say that. Palpatine then kills himself because I guess instead of just stopping the electricity from shooting out of his arms, which would have been the smarter move, he instead tries to electrocute Rey even more. Doesn't work, unsurprisingly, and then Rey wins. And then she just dies because she's out of life force. But not before Kylo replenishes it, and we get some hot #Reylo action, which we all love to see. Just like Romeo and Juliet, isn't it? Kind of. I just think that just the whole scene is just a cascade of bullshit. One of the worst things I've ever seen in a movie. And that's the ending to the whole saga. The final battle between good and evil. And it's just a fucking mess, and it's incoherent, and you can't tell what's happening. And none of it makes sense. Logic is just thrown out the window. And it's all so shit and depressing and disappointing.
Yeah. But Luke, you say it's a shit ending, but there's still a scene or two after that. So surely they're able to redeem it.
Unfortunately not, Michael. The actual ending to this movie, or the last scene in this whole saga, is where Rey drops her lightsaber off. And somebody, as you mentioned before in your nitpicks, asks her name. And obviously it's incredibly forced. Why the hell would you ask someone that? Who cares about the surname? And sorry. And then Rey replies, Rey Skywalker. So she's a Skywalker now. One thing, Michael, do you know that Leia, she's been to Tatooine once. Do you remember what happened when she was in Tatooine?
Oh yeah, it's pretty hot. How could I forget?
Yeah. And Luke, that's the exact place that he saw his uncle and aunt burned to death. I don't think maybe it's the best place to bury your lightsabers, but anyway, the Skywalker bit. Again, why would she do that? Why would she say Skywalker? Because the thing is, the Skywalkers have a checkered past. You have Anakin and you have Luke, and it's a bit dicey, really. Why not just go with Palpatine? Because the whole point of this movie, really, what for Rey was, it doesn't matter who your identity is. You can make your own way. It doesn't matter about your bloodlines. You can choose what to do. So, or just take another name like, I don't know, Leia's last name, Organa. Maybe that would make more sense. But yeah, I just think it's an incredibly forced moment, and I don't think it really makes that much sense that she adopts the Skywalker name as well. She adopts the Skywalker name essentially because that's the most famous name. That is what the trilogy has built up to. So there you go. Or the saga. It's called the Skywalker saga, so she has to take the name Skywalker. Like I said, though, even though not all the Skywalkers have been great, but I do have a theory, Michael.
Yep, I'm ready for it.
I think this would have made the movie good. I said this to my friend around the time it came out. Wouldn't have made the movie good, but it would have made the movie interesting.
Luke, you have friends other than me.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, Hal.
I have a friend other than you, but they're also called Luke.
Okay.
Do you know that?
Yes, I think you've told me.
I haven't mentioned that before. Yeah. What have I got? Some kind of theme going?
Well, here's what they could have done to make this movie kind of interesting. Don't call this movie The Rise of Skywalker. Call it The Rise of Palpatine. Because here's the thing. You call it The Rise of Palpatine. It's like, Palpatine's back. He's going to take over. Oh, shit. There you go. But it turns out then Rey's a Palpatine. And it's her. Yeah. And then it's... Because that's the thing. Nobody would suspect that Rey's a Palpatine if it's called The Rise of Palpatine. Nobody would suspect that it would be Rey who would be the Palpatine that would rise and take over the galaxy. And you could have, delivered that information in a smarter way than how it was. Just fucking old guy saying, you're my granddaughter. That's Palpatine, obviously. That's my Palpatine impression. Maybe not the best, but yeah, I just think, what do you think? Rise of Palpatine? I think that'd be a much more intriguing title.
Yeah, to be honest, the expression "polishing a turd" comes to mind, and because it's fine. It's a fine. It
would have subverted your expectations, which is very key in this franchise, and it would have done it in a fun way. Or it would have done it in an intriguing way, because nobody would have suspected it, Michael. Not one person.
That's true, yeah. I'm sure all those fan theorists would be, they go, wow.
And that's what
we didn't get it.
Movies are about, tricking fans.
I love it. Yeah, they tricked you. Your Palpatine, Rise of Palpatine title theory sucks. That would be you wearing your shirt as you're directing the film. Well done, Luke.
Okay. Yeah, great. That's what I'm going to do in like 20 years when I direct
Speaking
Star Wars.
of people directing films, why don't you tell me a thing or two about J.J. Abrams?
Here's the thing, Michael. Here's the thing. He's a hack fraud. You know, I mean, there is just so much plot in this movie. It's hard to keep track of all the little things going on, and this is a problem with J.J. Abrams. He never lets a film breathe. How many conversations, ask yourself, how many conversations do the main characters have that are not just exposition? Tell me.
None. No, none.
Yeah, I mean, there are some. But,
Finn has that conversation with the other Stormtrooper woman.
That's literally the first thing I thought of when I was thinking of that. That is quite a deep conversation, the only real one in this movie, where it's like one where Poe and Zora, whatever she's called, discuss, you know, their past or whatever and their future. But, you know, nobody really cares about Poe. Sorry about Poe. I mean, people care about Finn. And I'm going to use that example in a bit, actually, to prove my point. But yeah, you think about all the characters in this movie. Poe, Finn, Rey, they're kind of just doing stuff. You know, there's not really a time where you can sit back and ask yourself, wait, what is going on? Because you're constantly thrust into the next scene, and that's J.J. Abrams' style, and it's really shit, because at the end of the day, he's trying to make you get engaged with the story because there's so much action, but in actual fact, you actually get bored, as there is nothing deeper, you know, going on. It's just bad guys shooting the good guys, and it's constant, and everyone is along with the ride all the time, and as we talked about before, one of the key aspects of, you know, good movies, good action movies, I guess, is the slow moments that make the exciting moments that much better. You know, like less is more. And J.J. Abrams really needs to learn that. Less is more. I think about the issue with Finn in this movie. So, like you said before, he has this moment where he talks to another stormtrooper who's escaped, and he's saying, yeah, you know, stormtroopers, man. God, Christ on a bike, we're really, you know, we're fucked, aren't we? Like, how shit is it to be taken as a kid and, you know, asked to kill innocent civilians? You know, he must have sympathy for stormtroopers, right? That's his, you know, that's something that he's being revealed with this character moment. But then there's another point in the movie where there are some stormtroopers and he shoots them and he does a woohoo like that, even though he knows they could be in the same position as him. And that's the thing. J.J. Abrams right there is sacrificing a character's motivation, or his actual character, his actual belief for the moment, which is the moment of triumphant joy as Finn shoots the stormtrooper and he dies. And so Finn can go woohoo, even though his character probably wouldn't do that. His character would not like killing stormtroopers because he knows that stormtrooper could be them. And a lot of stormtroopers, you know, maybe the ones he killed didn't have a choice. They were, you know, kidnapped as kids. So I think that right there sums up the problem with this. Just no appreciation for characters at all. Just everything has to be action all the time and plot. So yeah, what do you think about that, Michael?
I think that's what J.J. Abrams does. What do you do? He did I'm trying to think. He did
Star Trek
and that one film, Mission Impossible. He did one of the Mission Impossible. Was it Mission Impossible 3?
I mean,
Philip Seymour Hoffman was good in that.
I know Mr. Blanket or Mike from Red Light Media said that it would be good for J.J. Abrams to direct Star Wars, because based on how he did with Star Trek. And I think that was a fair assumption to make at the time. But I think it's now looking back, it's better if he did like a one-off Star Wars.
Yes,
you know,
yes. Like J.J. Abrams could have done like a Rogue One, easily.
Yeah, exactly. That would have been really good for him. But like a trilogy where you have to have, you know, characters that actually, you know, have character, and their actions are defined by, you know, the choices that the character makes because of their motivations, because of who they are. That is not what J.J. Abrams is good at, you know. Like, he's much better at, you know, things getting blown up and so on and so forth, which, for a single movie that can be okay, but for a trilogy where the key thing is developing these characters, that's something that he is not good at. And I think that thing with Finn that showed that, he really doesn't care about anything but these moments where things go boom and, you know, there's danger and drama, which is a real shame. I also, let's just talk about fan service, I guess, as well, because he really loves fan service. Things are just tossed away, you know, to make room for that. You think about that Maz Kanata thing, giving Chewbacca a medal. Remember that?
Yeah, I remember that. Classic.
Yeah, classic. Again, nobody asked for that. Do you know why she gave him that, by the way?
Oh, because, he didn't get one in...
A New Hope.
Yeah, New Hope. That was
so he gets one here, of course. Yeah, just... Nobody asked for it. nobody needed it, but it's a great moment, isn't it? So yeah, it's just that's the thing with J.J. Abrams. He is a hack fraud, and look, I mean, he's good at directing certain movies. Obviously, I'm being a bit too harsh on him. He has got some talent in him, I guess, but yeah, he should not be directing movies like this. Rian Johnson is better than him, and that is saying something, because I criticise Rian Johnson a lot in The Last Jedi, but Rian Johnson does a better job than J.J. Abrams. So there you go.
Yeah, that's true. No, yeah. Rian Johnson. I mean, that's the thing. Like, a lot of... I don't know, maybe we can talk about this later. In fact, no, wait. Oh, this is a great segue, Luke. You've done it. You did it. You've pulled a great segue out the bag here. Because one of the things that a lot of people have said... I've seen several kind of YouTube people say this thing, and they're the only people that matter, obviously, saying like, oh yeah, watching this film made me appreciate Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi more. And I don't know about that. Like, I would say, but the thing is, I would also say that I'm pretty,
it kind of
I was kind of a centrist on Rian Johnson anyway. My attitude was I agreed with a lot of the things he was trying to say and a lot of the messages he was trying to communicate. I just think he handled it in a really bad way, which I think is pretty much what a lot of other people are now realizing. And I want to talk about this issue because this film does a lot to undo The Last Jedi. And first of all, the number one thing to make clear is that this is bad because this is what, to me, makes the film come across very pathetic and like it's groveling. It's like saying, please like us. And it makes me not respect the film, the fact that they did this, regardless of whether or not you think that Rian Johnson, every single idea he had was just terrible or whatever else. The fact that they're just like, oh, we're trying to fix it, is just the worst. So there's that. And, but the other thing is, I think that most of the stuff Rian Johnson did on a macro scale was not really terrible and kind of interesting. And therefore, going back and changing it again on the macro scale doesn't really help in any way. Anything more generally to say? Otherwise, I can just go through the specific examples we have of things being undone.
Let's just go through these specific examples. Let's see how many, you missed or I missed. Go on. All
right. So what I've done is I've done them in order of like the least significant to the most significant.
All right. Okay.
And we're going to start off with one that I think is kind of small. It's the we should try the Holdo maneuver. That one's 1 in a million. So this isn't exactly undoing The Last Jedi, but it's kind of trying to account for a plot hole in The Last Jedi, which is, I think, like, I get it, but I also think they should have just left it unsaid. Like, yes, it's a plot hole. It's weird. Why don't people do it all the time? But because it's what, famously, if you've seen Lindsay Ellis's video on Beauty and the Beast, because we love to mention her at least once a week, she talks about how one of the things that, they tried to do in the Beauty and the Beast remake is address loads of the plot holes. But like, they just had these weird things where they were trying to like sort everything out. Like, they had the whole thing where people were like, why did the servants get punished for the Beast being an asshole? Well, in the live action version, it turns out that the Beast was being abused and the servants didn't help him. And like, you're like, okay, but then it just causes all these other issues. And obviously in this case, the big thing it causes is that it technically means that Holdo no longer made a heroic sacrifice. Because if that movie is really 1 in a million, and presumably this was a known fact that it was 1 in a million, because, otherwise why didn't everyone else do it in the past? Then literally, yeah, it wasn't even a sacrifice, because most likely, I guess 1 in a million means you might otherwise just shoot past them or whatever. So basically, yeah, it wasn't even a sacrifice. So they basically just ruined that. And obviously, like I say, it was a massive issue in terms of like destroying the way hyperspace is supposed to work.
Well, it's a massive issue to you, Michael. Nobody else.
Yeah. But and like I say, it's the bottom one. But then we got this one's lower for the line. A Jedi's weapon deserves respect. This line is weird because on the one hand,
I would say it's one of the low ones. Okay.
See, I think this is a low one. The reason I think it's a low one is because if ignoring the rest of the context for all the other stuff that's overturned, I would just assume that this was because it's important to remember that Rian Johnson, the point of his story was that Luke starts off as a jaded person, and by the end of it, he becomes kind of more enthusiastic again. That Luke does actually have a story arc kind of over the course of the last
year. So basically, it's that specific. Considering that's the first thing that he does in episode 8. Throw the lightsaber over his shoulder, and that's the first thing he does in this movie. Says a Jedi's weapon deserves more respect.
Yes, so that's the thing. I mean, the reason why I say it's kind of low is because it's not really undoing it. In that, by the end of The Last Jedi, Luke probably would agree that a lightsaber is, well, I don't know if he'd ever say like a I never got the impression, but like, definitely. And the thing is, it's literally like almost directly calling Rian Johnson disrespectful.
Exactly, that's the thing. Like, and then he turns to the camera and says, "I was wrong."
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, maybe this is should be possibly above a few of the others. But the reason why I put it low is because I was thinking like you could say. you could say it's like a kind of a joke. Or like, you could say like it's just kind of more of a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, rather than an I'm actively undermining you. But I don't know. Okay, yeah. So I've got this one. And this one, I think, the reason why this is higher, Kylo Ren rebuilds his mask. And the reason why I put it higher is because it's so fucking unnecessary. Because the whole thing is like Kylo Ren gets made fun of by Snoke for like wearing a stupid mask.
Hiding behind the mask, yeah.
Yeah, and then he like smashes his mask in like this powerful moment, and then he's just like rebuilding the mask. And you might say like, okay, well it's because now Snoke's dead. He's like, oh, I can wear my mask now. But they're not like set it up. He's literally just like, like the way it's set up is just like, I've got to rebuild that dumb mask. And it's like, well, you destroyed it, and you were without it for like most of the last film. Why are you rebuilding it now? Just because he's got to have a cool mask, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's bizarre, really. I don't. Why does he do that? There's no thematic reason why he does it. There's no character reason why he does it. I can't think of one. Maybe I'm just
all I can think of is more toys. Now you can sell the Kylo mask with the kind of red things, red cement in it, red super glue to fix it.
I don't know.
Because literally, it was just so weird. I mean, maybe it's because like, I mean, we all know that J.J. Abrams likes visuals. So maybe it's like, oh yeah, imagine like a mask that was put back together like this red super glue and had like this.
That's
like,
probably
red folder.
Yeah, that's
probably it. Yeah. So this one again, I'm going to put this one. So I'm putting that one quite high because I think it was unnecessary. Okay. And just like the sheer, whereas I think at least the Jedi's weapon deserves more respect. You say, well, that's part of the story that J.J. Abrams wanted to tell.
But we also need to consider which is the bigger fuck you to Rian Johnson. It's like the lightsaber one's a bigger fuck you.
Yes.
It's a bigger like, oh, you did this, I'm going to do this. I think the helmet thing you could argue is just because it looks better. Yeah.
And then we got this one. Okay, see, Rose is nothing in this film. Rose gets completely sidelined, and it's kind of this one. The reason why this one's quite high is because it's constant throughout the film. That she's just always in the background and basically completely, almost irrelevant to the plot. And it's weird for like two reasons. One, it should be acknowledged that it kind of feels a bit horrible considering the fact that whatever you think of Rose's character, Kelly Marie Tran was subject to a lot of kind of really bad abuse by like Star Wars fans. So to then respond to that by kind of, it feels like rewarding that behavior to then be like, oh, don't worry, we're going to get rid of her now.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, considering how few kind of characters there were we knew at the final battle, it feels like so wasteful to not include this character who was developed in the last film. And yeah, she had a really stupid moment in the last film, but she was developed with like her sister being a fighter pilot, with the fact that she like admired Finn and then realized that he was like a coward, and then obviously came to fall in love with him, I guess. They did establish some actual development there.
Yeah, she was one of the 5 major characters from The Last Jedi.
And she could have died in this film, in like the final fight scene to give more power to it, like in the final battle, but no, she's just nothing.
Yeah, I mean, the scene that really gets me is when she's really excited to go on the trip with Finn and Rey and the rest of them to find the Wayfinder, and then suddenly she's tapped on the shoulder and some Disney executives give her a piece of paper and she has to read that line about, oh, sorry, I have to stay back to look after Leia and the rest of the rebellion here. Good luck. That was a bit weird, but yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the stranger moments. That was a real plot hole.
Yes.
So now this one, okay, so Kylo seems to almost just be straight up evil at the beginning of this, which is weird because he's set up like kind of most of the second film is him.
No, but he ends really evil, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's the weird thing about it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, you could say like he kind of feels I want to say because that's the thing. Obviously,
he goes from conflicted, which I'll get onto when talking about his character. Like he goes from conflicted to like, I am now on the dark side for sure. Like that ship has sailed, or it should have sailed. But yeah, that's the thing. He really hates the Resistance at the end of The Last Jedi.
That's fair enough because I was kind of not really thinking. So that one's pretty. Basically.
Anything else?
Just and okay, so this is when we get to the big two. These are the big two. Okay, so one, and to put it in perspective, the final one I've written 5 separate points for it. But first of all, Snoke is somebody. He's a clone. So I think this one's a big one because it's something people complained a lot about for The Last Jedi, which I always thought, and I think both you and I thought it didn't really matter. The fact that Snoke never really had a backstory, it was never really explained who he was, where he came from.
Yeah,
he was just some random evil guy.
I was fine with Rian Johnson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think we were all fine with that. And yet now, Snoke, we now know where he came from. He's a clone created by Palpatine. Great. Glad. They really didn't need that. And it just felt, and again, like I think, and you kind of hinted this yourself, the idea of Snoke being in some way sort of an opponent to both the Jedi and Palpatine, kind of like a third way, would have been way more interesting than him just being subordinate to General Palpatine, Chancellor Palpatine. Anyway. And now we get to the big one. The biggest one easily, I think, because it easily does the most to completely discredit the number one point that number one theme and in Ryan Johnson's film, and that is Rey is special. Rey is a Palpatine. Rey's parents are good.
Yeah.
And I've got a few things to say specifically about that.
The Rey's parents is like being good. It's not really that relevant.
Well, no. See, I have an issue with Rey's parents being good. Okay, I think, well, in a way, kind of. Basically, okay. So Rey is special, or Rey's a Palpatine more specifically. The issue of that is that the big thing Ryan Johnson was trying to get across is that he was very much against the fatalism of these other Star Wars films. I was like, oh, you come from an ancient lineage and you have this great glorious journey ahead of you. And it was very clear what he was trying to do was move things in a direction of, no, actually, you as an individual can choose your own path. And if you're just some random person from some shitty part of the galaxy, you can choose to become a good person. And, that's kind of invalidated by being that, no, you're my daughter. You were always destined to be incredible and good and strong. So that undoes that.
I'd say overall, this is going back to episode 8, but I'd find that theme. I kind of like that theme, but it's, like I said, it's the way it's set up in episode 7. Does not jive with what happened in episode 8, but I think that's the theme in episode 8. Okay, that's established, right? No, actually, like you said, she's now a part of this very rare bloodline. Yeah, it just completely goes back on that message. And so
that's the thing, whether or not, no matter how you feel about episode 8, because even if you think episode 8 was, like, bad, like you did, it still is stupid to then just be like, okay, Rey's parents are important and it matters in episode 7 too. Rey's parents aren't important, it doesn't matter in episode 8. Then, oh wait, no, Rey's parents do matter. Now, you said that Rey's parents being good doesn't matter, but I do think there is a significant thing. One, the way that information is communicated is really funny, because Kylo literally says the line, they sold you to protect you. Like, basically, it's weird. It's weird how he says it. And okay, so, like, 1, that's weird. 2, he's acting as if he wasn't lying, when if you actually look at what he said in episode 8, he was like, your parents were junk traders who sold you for money, or, like, sold you so they could buy more, I don't know, heroin or whatever.
He's very clearly lying.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other thing is, like, how this deals with Rey's character, because, it's so strange to me, because, obviously, I think Ryan Johnson buggered up The Last Jedi in that. I think Rey, her thing is that she cares about who her parents are and she's waiting for her parents. So for her to find out that her parents didn't care about her and didn't love her and she really meant nothing to them is a huge blow. And it's like, it's her version of your father is Darth Vader, because it's like, because Luke's whole thing was he wants to go out and, he believes his father died fighting the Empire, and then he finds actually his father's a servant of the Empire. So that's his big thing. Rey's big thing is, her parents abandoned her, but she believes that her parents cared about her, they had a reason, and they're coming back. But actually finds out, oh no, her parents didn't have a reason, her parents are just arseholes. And the very weird moment is when Kylo is saying, like, your parents were good people, and Rey is crying as if she's upset. And it's like the no, you're lying moment in Empire, where Luke finds out that Darth Vader's father's like, no, you're lying. Except, like, I think that Rey literally says you're lying when he's saying, like, your parents were good people. And she's like, you're lying. Which is weird, because obviously when Luke is saying, no, you're lying, it's because he's finding out something horrible, that Darth Vader is his father. When Rey says, no, you're lying, it's because the very bad thing she found out, that her parents didn't care about her, is now being completely taken away with. So, like, it's gone. Yeah. That now, oh no, her parents did care about her. So that's weird. And then it all culminates in this moment where Palpatine's like, oh, your parents were dickheads. And Rey's like, my parents were strong. And I hated it so much, because it's like, the one thing they were trying to establish that they could have done that would have been interesting is, like I say, it doesn't matter. Like, if Rey's parents were complete assholes, complete dickheads, the worst people on the planet, it doesn't mean Rey can't be a great person. But instead, and obviously you might say, well, obviously it's still showing that because Rey's a Palpatine and yet she's still a good person. But when she's asked about it, she doesn't say like, oh, I'm a good person and I'm going to be a good person based on my actions and my life experience. She says, my parents are good. And that is the thing she says. That's the mantra that directly precipitates her being a good person and defeating the bad guys. So it's kind of a complete flip on its head of like, oh, you thought, no, that it doesn't matter whether or not your parents are terrible people. No, the fact that Rey's parents are good is the explicit reason she gives when she then goes on to defeat the evil people. Yeah. And that is just a complete, and again, like I say, if you don't really care about Ryan Johnson's whole parents or whatever, and well, obviously in your case, you agree with the idea and think it's interesting, but you don't think it was good based on episode 7, which I get. But to then just like, it's just so annoying that was like one of the most interesting things for Rey's character. And like J.J. Abrams completely gets rid of it, and then he acts as if. Oh, anyway, so let's move on swiftly. The other thing it does is, in some sense, it invalidates the original trilogy and the original saga. And
episode 4 to 6, yeah.
Yes, so I'm just going to go through like the very quick. One, the fact that, because some of this stuff we've already covered, but the fact there's loads of Star Destroyers super easily means that you think, well, why on earth was Palpatine not just able to conquer the entire, like, why didn't he do that from episodes 4 to 6?
He's been lazy in the original trilogy.
Exactly, yeah. And I also had Chewie get some medal under this because it's like the implication that Chewie was slighted is weird. Like, because it's like, basically when you give Chewie a medal at the end of this, you're implying like that when, in episode 4, when he didn't get one, that was like a bad thing. And it's like, well, I didn't really, anyway. But the big thing is, of course, Anakin's story is meaningless. And I think you were talking about, Palpatine's death and how disappointing it is. And I think the crazy thing about it is that you have to compare it to Darth Vader's defeat of Palpatine in the context of his story throughout episodes, episode 1 is complete garbage, but let's be generous, say episodes 2 to 6. So you've got Anakin as like, it kind of becomes a bit of a dickhead. Yes, I'm not saying Attack of the Clones is great, but Anakin kind of becomes a bit dickhead. He becomes like an evil person, and then he defeats the guy in the end, and it's like powerful, and it's a great moment. When he sees his son dying and he's like, no, I mean, I know it's shit. He says no, but whatever. And then he kills, and it's just, it's so great in terms of just being a classic redemption, and it just works so well together. And that's now completely done away with, because he might as well, like, Palpatine doesn't even seem to be in any way adversely affected by what Anakin did. In fact, if anything, he seems stronger. And it's terrible that Anakin's story is now rendered completely meaningless, and that what we have instead is so shit.
Yeah, no, you are right. You think about what he sacrificed, Anakin, just giving up everything for his son, the ultimate redemption story. And now, well, it doesn't really matter because the Emperor came back. So was it really worth it? I mean, obviously, you could say he redeemed himself. He did the right thing. But yeah, the actual action then isn't that big. And that does ruin the Return of the Jedi, which is very unfortunate because the Return of the Jedi is a much better movie than this. This movie dragging other Star Wars movies down with it, it's not something that you want to see.
Yes. Now, I think let's talk about this film obviously does not just manage to ruin everything around it, also kind of ruins the things within it. And one thing I think we should just talk about is the characters. I think we always like to kind of end on characters, so we'll mostly just talk about them, and I think we'll pretty much be ready to conclude. So we'll start with Finn. A few things. One, okay, let's just deal with the big question. I'm sure I want to hear your opinion. Is what did Finn want to tell Rey?
Yeah, that's so weird. I can't. Maybe he has the Force. That's the only thing I can think of. But I don't know why he'd not tell her that already, and why he'd keep that a secret. Because that's something that's like, oh, you have the Force. I think I have it too. Could you help me? Maybe like that's something that you wouldn't want to keep a secret because why? It doesn't make any sense really. So that's that. And I just think overall Finn in this movie is just sidelined a lot. You consider how important he was in the first one. Horrendous.
Oh, like honestly, and especially like now John Boyega's proved himself to be such a boy Yeager. And just like obviously a lot of people like John Boyega now just because he's got kind of like a nice Twitter personality. We obviously stan him for James Bond, and just to see him
James Bond,
we just to see him be like. And the other thing is because the other thing that you could think he was trying to say is like I love you, which would make sense because he's embarrassed to say it around Poe. He won't say. And the other thing is he spends a lot of this film just saying Rey's name, just going like Rey. Like following her around, like she's having a fight. She's like, Rey! And it kind of, it's kind of weird. They sort of, Finn almost feels a bit simpy in this film in a really weird way where like in the first one.
Oh yeah, he definitely is.
It almost feels like Rey and Finn have something of an authentic romance going.
A connection, yes.
Yeah, and I know like I don't know why it is. It has been pointed out before that it's actually quite rare, like surprisingly rare, considering how often black people tend to be leads. In these, I say, well, they don't always be, but like a lot of time black people, there are some famous black male leads. But it's actually quite rare for a film to end with a black man ending up in a relationship with a white woman. Like it's really rare. And obviously it doesn't happen in this film. And you could say, well, that's just generally because it's rare. It doesn't happen because maybe Hollywood's still a bit racist. But the other reason could be China. If you want to, just say, oh, it's not our racism, it's China.
Yeah, if you want to like blame
China. Just like we blame them for the coronavirus.
Yeah.
In general, though, yes, Finn, any kind of relationship he had that meant anything is gone. They actually have this weird segregation thing where the person he has the closest connection with is the other black character, which is just weird. And in general, it's just like...
It didn't have to be weird, because it could have been... The subtext is, hey, this is how black people have been treated. They've been treated as, slaves. And so it makes sense that the black characters are the ones that have rebelled.
Yeah, I should have had a scene of them throwing an Emperor Palpatine statue in a river.
yes. No, that makes sense, but they don't really do anything with it.
No,
like,
yeah,
what
they
if
don't do anything
Finn
with it.
led a rebellion of the stormtroopers against the First Order?
No, yeah, that's exactly that's the thing everyone has always said. So you're not original.
Oh.
No. But basically, like people have said, like it makes sense. He as a person who left the First Order, it would really make sense for him to kind of have a story arc about encouraging other stormtroopers to lead the First Order. But instead, he never really interacts with many stormtroopers. I don't know if they're still called stormtroopers, but yeah, never really interacts with any stormtroopers. And he never really you never have that moment where the fact that he's a former stormtrooper is very irrelevant to either of the subsequent two films in the trilogy. The fact that he was ever originally a stormtrooper. And yeah, in this one it's completely gone. There's nothing there.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, Poe.
Poe. He runs Spice.
He is not gay. I just want to repeat that for you. He's not gay. He has a girlfriend, and yes, she lives on another planet. You won't know her, but he does have a girlfriend.
And that's important.
Yeah, it's important because all this Finn Poe thing is total bullshit, and get it out of your filthy mind. Of course, Finn and Poe aren't gonna make out together. I mean, come on, we've got to put this movie up in Alabama. We've got to put this movie up in Russia, in China. I don't know if China's homophobic. They probably are. I think we've got to put this movie up in Indonesia, in Malaysia, in the Middle East. We've got to put this movie up all around the world. And if two main characters kiss, my God,
that's going to be a disaster. Yeah,
the box office returns will be way down. So yes, we can't do that.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, Poe kind of even has less going for him. I kind of excuse it because I feel like Poe,
well, everybody, all of the good guys, apart from Rey, are really left out to dry in this movie.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yeah, basically, they're all just, Rey, okay. Let's talk about Rey.
Yes.
She is, the Mary Sue is in full, and I don't even have any issue saying it this time. Before with The Force Awakens, I was aware of the kind of connotations of calling Rey a Mary Sue. But let's be honest, okay. Poe, somebody who's been established as being a great pilot, when he's piloting and Chewie says something, we don't hear what he says, but it's implied that he's got an issue with Poe's piloting. And what does Poe say? He says, Rey's not here. He says, Rey's not here. The implication being that Chewie was saying, I wish Rey was here. She'd be much better at piloting than you. That's a very clear implication. In other words, so Poe, who's a great pilot, established as being a great pilot in the other two films, no, he's nothing like Rey. Rey is fantastic. There's nothing that anybody can compete with Rey. We also have Rey as the best fighter we have, which obviously I can kind of see that because obviously she's the main Jedi and that's fine, but they just have to have that line. And it's there's, what on earth?
Can she not do?
Finn and Poe have no, and obviously in the original trilogy, you could say what really does Leia contribute? But certainly I think at least Han Solo is very clearly established as a very competent pilot. And also I think the other thing about it is it's not just about abilities, there's personal attributes. Leia's very kind of fierce, which I realize obviously, you can't say there's a kind of sexist connotation, but it was the 70s and 80s or whatever. But Leia's fierce in a way that Luke isn't. Luke is not Luke's a bit meek. He's a bit you kind of get the impression he'd be the guy who's a bit too scared to talk to a girl. Han Solo's really suave. Luke is really honourable. These are all things. What are the two great attributes that Finn and Poe have? You don't have to be talking about powers, you don't have to be talking about talents, just things about their personality.
Back to Finn and Poe now.
I'm just saying, sorry, I know I'm just saying, compared to further the point that Rey is just all there is.
All
There's nothing that I can think of for either of the other characters where I'd be like, oh yeah, that's what they're great at. Whereas I could do that for the original trilogy.
I mean, Poe is a discount Han Solo, a very, very discount Han Solo, and Finn is a simp who does what you've summed it up, he is a simp. That's why John Boyega really didn't like this movie, because he's fucking Finn, man, what are you doing? He does stuff now and then, but he's literally just there. And again, like we talked about, such a come down for the opening movie. But I just want to talk about Rey for a sec, because
I had another thing to say about Rey, but I'll let you talk.
Well, I just want to say first and foremost, you compare how she looks in this movie to Episode 8. There is a clear difference. She looks a lot. What's the best word for this? Because it's not attractive. She looks a lot.
She looks a lot more like a diva.
No, not a diva. It's she looks just
a lot more bang tidy.
She just looks better. And what I mean by that is she looks more like a model, I guess. That's one of
more put together.
Yeah, but it's that doesn't. She looks more clean in this movie. There's some shots. I watched a video before this of Rey in The Last Jedi, and you can really see it in that scene with Kylo Ren. She looks different. She looks a lot like it's like she's got less makeup on or something. She does not look the same. And that's interesting that I got from that. That Rian Johnson didn't care that much about that. But in this movie, J.J. Abrams, or maybe it wasn't J.J. Abrams.
It's a good thing. Well, it's a good thing Colin Trevorrow wasn't there. He would have had her dressed up as a glamour model.
Oh yeah, like Leia.
Slave Ray.
Yeah, I just thought I'd point that out because it's a noticeable difference when you compare them side to side. But anyway, Rey. Here's the thing. This is her character arc in the episode.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm ready for this.
Will she, because she now knows she's a Palpatine, go towards the dark side? I mean, she almost killed Chewie. She thought she killed Chewie. She's concerned about her. Is she going to become really bad? And she's worried. But here's the thing: there's no dark inclinations at all.
I know. Yeah.
And she wants to destroy Palpatine, and she does. But anyway, that's not her being a bad person. That's the goal, isn't it? To kill Palpatine because he's the evil guy. That's the thing I didn't get about that Luke thing in the last what's it called? So many Star Wars episodes in Return of the Jedi. That's the thing. Luke killing Palpatine. That's the fucking end goal. So you kill him. He's the bad guy. Because you kill him, that doesn't mean you're bad. Like, okay, you won the war. So here's the thing. She's mad
I have thought that sometimes.
Yeah, she's mad at herself, Rey, for seeing the dark version of her in the Death Star ruins, which, by the way, is hilarious because she's got these weird pointy teeth and she snarls. It's just such a fucking joke. And she's a Palpatine, like we said, but she never actually does anything that makes you think that she could turn to the dark side. And maybe she does because she's that sensitive to it and she's concerned. But for us, the audience, I'm watching this movie, I'm like, she's not turning. She's nowhere near. What the fuck has she done that would make me think that she could turn to the dark side? It's just not captivating at all. They try to do it and it just fails. She's 100% a good person. Like when Zori, that's fucking Poe's girlfriend, says, I like you. Like, Rey says, I do care that you like me, and she offers her her hand. It's like, no, but like, of course she's not going to turn to the dark side. It's just so stupid that they went down this path. You actually have to make her do something like bad and evil or kind of evil to make you think that, and that does not happen. Basically, I had that written down as well. Like, basically, that is the conflict, and it's just in general, like this film, it feels like it was written by somebody who doesn't know how to do conflict. And that's like, it's kind of something I've already hinted at with the whole, no, my parents weren't good people. Stop saying that. As if like who wrote that? Did they think that having parents who are good people is a bad thing? And in the same way, like, they were written like, Rey's grandfather is Palpatine. So she thinks she's going to be bad. Oh, she saw like, that's the thing. And it's
obviously you said how
children, Michael.
Yeah.
I mean,
exactly.
literally it is actually meant to be that, but like the themes are supposed to be, better. And that is not the case. It literally, it's like J.J. Abrams watched Star Wars, the episodes 4 to 6, and even, I don't know, the previous ones, apart from those, and he didn't actually get it. That's what you think. He doesn't actually get Star Wars.
It's like it's kind of an alien trying, or like, there's the whole thing of like artificial intelligence, like bots that will like kind of scour Facebook and then kind of write like fake Facebook posts based on like what they see. That's what this is like, except it's a start. Like if you made an artificial intelligence bot that didn't really understand human emotions, watch the first 4 to 6 Star Wars films, they would be like, this is what they would write. They would write something which contains all the basic elements that like a mindless computer could pick up, but did not communicate in a way that was actually compelling to a real human being. Yeah,
it's like this movie and Rey's character arc. It's kind of and the lack of conflict. It's an imitation of what Star Wars actually, I think, was, and it's this fantasy version that J.J. Abrams has invented in his head. Which you don't have to fight these battles, and she nearly killed Chewbacca. That means she's almost turned to the dark side. She's really concerned. It's like, no, you have to go deeper. Like, actually show her doing something bad, because it's okay. Like, the characters don't have to be all good all the time. You think about Han Solo in the first movie. He wasn't all good all the time. It's fine. You can do that, and he just doesn't, which is again very disappointing. But yeah, I think we should talk about Kylo now.
I think we should talk about Kylo.
So I have an issue with Kylo in this movie because once again, it's another movie where he is struggling to decide whether to be good or bad. And I think this is what white privilege is, Michael. There's been a lot of discussion about white privilege in the last few weeks, and I think it's being allowed to kill millions of people and your own dad who is beloved, but still be redeemed and somehow get a kiss from a girl who you tried to kill and whose friends you tried to kill as well. I just think that's Kylo overall he couldn't have been redeemed. Like, he should have gone evil. It's the only path that he can go down.
Okay, see, here's the thing, Kate. I agree based on, and it's so weird. I agree based on how Ryan Johnson ended The Last Jedi. Like, if The Last Jedi would have ended just a tiny bit earlier, I would think he could have been redeemed. But in a weird way, like, my attitude, and this is what I would have done, if I had been in charge, but also a bit in charge of The Last Jedi as well, then my attitude would have been that Kylo Ren starts off, he becomes, like, disaffected and uninterested in picking a side, and then his redemption is that he picks a side. I don't think you can't have him go within the space of one film from as kind of joyfully evil as he is at the beginning of this film to being redeemed. It doesn't work. So I think I wouldn't necessarily say because he's killed millions of people that means he can't be redeemed, because I think anything can happen with enough time. The problem is they didn't have enough time, and they had to, like, have this thing where Leia redeems him by just appearing to him. And this again is another example of invalidating within the trilogy itself, because it sort of invalidates Han Solo's sacrifice in The Force Awakens, where it's like, because it turns out Leia really easily just got Kylo Ren to turn from pretty willingly being able to kill Rey to being completely good. And that was all Leia. Leia just saved Leia. And you just think, well, Han Solo's a fucking idiot then, because he just, just died. Like, you think, like, it just makes Han Solo like a moron.
Well, to be fair, Han Solo doesn't have the Force. Maybe that has something to do with it. But yeah, I
he's
think
not part of the super race.
Yeah, you talk about how, well, maybe Kylo Ren could have been redeemed if The Last Jedi ended a bit early, and I'm like, maybe, okay, fine. I mean, he did kill a lot of people, but okay, whatever. But I think the bigger point I want to make is, I think it would have been better if he actually went full evil. Think of how great a character arc that would be. He starts off like he did in The Force Awakens, being, this fucking wimp who wants to be evil, and then he, throughout the course of 3 movies, transitions into someone who is truly evil by the end of the trilogy, and is an actual force to be reckoned with, and doesn't team up with Rey and do that fucking stupid thing that happens at the end of the movie. I think that would have been...
Honestly, I think that would have been definitely... Yeah, I don't think that would be bad. It's not what I would personally do if I was in charge of the whole trilogy. But I definitely think within the context of Episode 9, I definitely think that would have been the best move. Generally speaking, I don't think it would have been a bad move.
You have a guy like Vader, he's already been rehabilitated, and it's the obvious thing to do, to have a character like Kylo who's unsure become good. Like, it's the obvious thing. Wouldn't it be great if you had a full character arc where he turns properly evil? That's just what I'm thinking. I think that would have been really good. I think it would make sense again, given the context of this movie, as we have discussed. But yeah, and the other characters...
No.
No, we don't want to talk about Rose? No, we don't want
to talk about Rose. I actually wanted to talk about Raylo, but I think we kind of already covered that earlier.
Yeah, so, we did. I mean, it's fucking it's stupid, but you know what? I remember Adam Driver said, my character is not someone who anybody should want to.
Oh yeah, there's that whole like abuse thing where it's like. So we don't agree with abuse over on.
No, we don't. We're anti-abuse.
Select and reflect.
Yes.
Okay. The only thing we believe in abusing is weed.
It's true though. Like, it's accurate. I mean, who would actually want to be with this guy? I don't think anyone should. And
I don't know. Have you ever heard of like all the women who wanted to date Ted Bundy or whatever?
Actually, good point. There's always weirdos out there. Yeah.
So people like Raylos. They're weirder.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So yes, let's conclude, Michael.
So we've said a lot about this film, and I want to conclude by talking about the fact that something I've been kind of setting up recently when we talked about a lot of these bad films. I've been saying they're bad, but for a film to be a 1 out of 10, it has to disturb me on a visceral level. It has to really kind of get me. It has to be the term I use to describe it, and it's the term I always use, is oppressively bad. And in my opinion, this film is oppressively bad. It is just it shits all over the original trilogy. It shits all over this trilogy itself, and it's like the fact that it thinks that it is able to end this franchise, to end this saga, when just Episode 6 was so much better at ending the saga. And then they just go, let's just do it again. And just everything about it bothers me and annoys me, and I hate it. I don't like what this film is, what it was based on. I don't like the pretensions this film has to end such a massive saga, and to do it so lazily and so carelessly without having a plan. Just, and I know I'm not really talking about what's in the film, but to be honest, when I'm generally talking about 1 out of 10s, I'm not usually kind of talking about what's in the film. I'm just talking about the experience of watching it, just how I didn't like it. And in that case, what I didn't really like about this film is everything around this film. Obviously, yes, the film is really bad, and maybe if the context wasn't there, maybe I'd say this film was like a 2 or a 3. But knowing the context and just how that makes me feel, knowing like, oh yeah, remember Anakin Skywalker, it doesn't matter, Rey is defeating Palpatine now, and even though it's a much less satisfying death, there's Palpatine, he's dead. I hate it. I remember when I watched a review of episode 7, and somebody said that it was worse than the prequels. They were really going against episode 7, saying, episode 7 is shit, it's worse than the prequels. And I was thinking, no, it's not worse than the prequels. I mean, sure, the prequels, I mean, episode 7, I didn't like episode 7. I thought it was kind of disappointing. But I was like, it's a competently made movie. It did what it needed to do. The prequels are just really badly made. And I was thinking, Disney, they know what they're doing. They're not going to make a film worse than the prequels. This is like worse than the prequels. I think easily it's worse than the prequels. Just even looking at the quality of the writing alone, even looking at the quality of the story alone, even just looking at like the fun, like I feel like there was like a fun kind of quirkiness to almost every single one of all 3 of the prequels. And on top of that, at least the prequels were building up to something better. This is just ending a pretty fun saga, apart from recently, with just shit. And I hate it. And it's a 1. I guess it's worse than Charlie's Angels Full Throttle, but it's better than 50 Shades of Darker, is what I'm going to say. The Rise of Skywalker, yeah, I really did not like this film at all.
Look, here's the thing about this movie. You're really pissed off by the fact that it shats all over the original trilogies, and I'm going to have to disagree a bit on that, because I think the fact that the original characters were included in the sequel trilogy meant it was inevitable that these movies were going to like shit all over those original movies. So I'm not really going to pin that on this movie in particular. The whole sequels, yes, but not this movie in particular. So here's my theory on this, Michael.
Yes.
I think this Rise of Skywalker is probably the most Star Wars movie ever. I think about all the tropes that are in Star Wars movies and how it was like J.J. Abrams thought we have to include all of this in this movie. We have no choice but to. Like the TIE fighters chasing the good guys in the Falcon. Stormtroopers chasing the good guys in speeders. Rescuing a friend who's a rebel from an Imperial ship and killing stormtroopers. But this time, since we don't have much time, we have to cram everything in. It'll be super easy for the good guys to win. Remember that scene, Michael, when they're just literally picking off stormtroopers so easily? You compare that to A New Hope.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Revelations about who is related to who, Force ghosts coming back to teach the main characters lessons, planets being blown up with Death Star technology, droids with information in them, lifting X-Wings out of the water, the Sith tempting a younger Jedi to join the dark side while there's a battle going on, and there's a big celebration at the end when the war is won. Like, this just hits all of the beats. It's like there was a checklist that had to be included, and I think there's one scene which just summed up this movie for me, and it's a scene which I've not heard anybody mention because it is insignificant, and you'll have probably forgotten about it. It is when the General is questioning, near the start of the movie, whether Palpatine being aligned with the First Order is a good idea. And you remember what Kylo Ren does, Michael?
No.
He chokes him and slams him against the ceiling.
Oh, yeah, that was funny.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, you just forgot about it. But I was watching it, when I watched this in the cinema at the first time around, I thought, yeah, that moment, it encapsulates a lot of what is wrong with this movie. Because they're trying to replicate a moment in the originals, first off. That's what they're doing, obviously. But then they're doing it worse. The General wasn't saying anything that unreasonable. You think of when it happens in A New Hope, Darth Vader is getting mocked by the General. That's why Darth Vader does it. And Kylo, he doesn't just choke him. He slams him into the ceiling because everything has to be that much cooler now, and epic. So he can't just choke him. He has to slam him up into the ceiling. And no time is spent on it. It's like, well, that has to happen in a Star Wars movie. That's a trope. The big bad guy getting mad at one of his generals. So we got to tick that off the list. Let's just move on. No time for that moment to breathe at all. We have to shove as much Star Wars in as possible. And that is what really gets me about this movie. It's just so fucking bloated. There is just so much is crammed in, and that's why it feels rushed, because it feels like everything has to happen. And J.J. Abrams, this is the ultimate condemnation of him as a filmmaker, and why before I said he was a hack forward is because he said he did what he wanted to do with this movie. He said, fuck it, let's go for it. Let's just do it, And this is what he came up with. This is what his let's just do it thing is. So that implies that he's been held back before by people who actually have saved him from himself. because this is a truly shocking movie. Yes, The Last Jedi didn't set it up well, but it didn't need to be anywhere near as bad as it was. What did you give it out of 10, Michael?
I gave it a 1.
You get a 1 out of 10.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give this one. I see. The thing is, I'm not going to agree with you that it. What do you say? The originals. It ruins the originals, right? I think that was kind of inevitable when you were including characters. Like I said from the first one, it was kind of inevitable that the originals were going to get ruined in some way. It's why I said, I was surprised when they did it, because that chapter has ended. When you're bringing back Luke, Han, and Leia, well, that means their story didn't end there, and that means the originals are going to have less weight to them because they weren't that significant, like we talked about with Darth Vader, in fact, in this movie. But yeah, they did ruin Darth Vader, kind of, I guess, so that has to knock it down. I think I'm going to give this, it's either a 2.5 or a 2, Michael. That's what I'm debating. You know what? I'm going to... And it's the only thing I liked about this movie. No, it had so many issues. The thing is, I gave The Phantom Menace a 2.5 out of 10. And The Phantom Menace is... Yeah, I think The Phantom Menace actually might be better. Yeah, you know what, Michael? I'm going to give this a 2 out of 10.
Well done, Luke. That was very brave of you.
I know, it is very brave of me, but I'm thinking, what would I rather watch? The Rise of Skywalker or The Phantom Menace? Probably The Phantom Menace, because...
Phantom Menace gives me hope.
I just think it'd be easier to watch The Phantom Menace, and it'd be less... I mean, it's funnier, for one. That makes a difference. But yeah, it's just... I guess this one right here is just like a Frankenstein of all the Star Wars movies mashed together. It's great. Again, well, I called The Lion King last week an abomination. This is a similar abomination from Disney. And yeah, I think this, you consider how this trilogy ended. It started off with such hope. Do you remember the Force Awakens trailer, the first one that dropped?
Yes.
With Finn. I was like, oh yeah,
Star Wars jumps up out of the ground.
Yeah, Star Wars is back, and the end like this. Oh my god. It is this sequel trilogy is like the character arc in the prequels with Anakin. Starts off with so much hope, and then he turns into Darth Vader, and that's what these sequels feel like. Yeah. So yeah, that's it. What do we do next week, Michael? Anything better?
Well, next week we are going to be kind of just doing a bit of a post-mortem on this whole sequel trilogy. Yeah, and just really having a look.
As the hypothesis is these sequel trilogies were shit, and we're going to be diving, I guess, why this was the case. We're going to be going into the background more of these sequels. So yes, we have been selecting and reflecting on The Rise of Skywalker. It's been quite a long one, but I guess that's because it is Star Wars and this movie was really bad. Join us next week for just, I guess, a post-mortem, like you say, of the whole Star Wars sequel thing. Who have you been, Michael?
I've been Michael.
I've been Luke. Thanks for listening, and goodbye.
Goodbye.